I'm just out of Fast and Furious 10. Let you know I saw it last night, but basic gist. So this film is the 10th film in Fast and Furious, which it's technically 11 if you include Hobbs and Shaw in that. But anyways, mainstream movies, number 10. Now, I'm actually one of those people who liked 9, didn't think it was that bad, and thought some people were kind of like being a bit protective of the series. But come on, they knew we all knew they were going to go that nuts one day. So that actually surprised me in Fast 10 that they didn't go as nuts. But in a way, I was kind of glad that one film's just bonkers, and the other, this one now being more laid back, remind you of Fast 5 and 7, has a more personal story for Dom. The characters all have something to do, including the villain, played by a very charismatic Jason Momoa. The film has a very, I want to say, it's not that serious, but you feel like it's being serious, but you know you're watching a Fast and Furious movie. There's one scene where I actually forgot I was watching that, and then it was followed by a scene that reminded me I was watching a Fast and Furious film. And that's the great thing about this movie. It's not just a Fast and Furious film for the sake of a Fast and Furious film. There's some stuff in here in which you go, hang on, they wouldn't do that. Would they do that? And they do that. And Furious 7 is possibly my favorite one. But this one would be a contender for that. Is it bonkers? Yes. Is it a fast film? Yes. And Dom actually has something going on this time that's not, say, related to the other movies. It is related to other films. It does relate. And you want to root for Dom, and you want to root for all the others that join. But the villain's motivation is very personal. And even though he's a bad guy in nearly every way, just the performance and the sort of I don't care vibe he gives off. And then when he actually tells, there's a scene where Dom learns about what the real motivation is, which I won't spoil. I think the Raft newspaper did that already. Um, the film's villain has personal motives, which is something that they attempted with Fast 9. I think they did all right with Fast 9. I just think they should have committed more to that personal angle for the villain in there, which was Jacob. Um, he's also back for this installment. He's on the posters. You can see him in the trailers. So that's not really a spoiler. Um, all so the first things I liked about the film were its story and its characters, and people are saying and calling out the same name as Infinity War. I think that's the best way of calling this film. The film, the film's let's go way of putting this. The film has a great vibe to it. It's a Fast and Furious movie with some moments in which you kind of go, oh, this might just be a bit different. And then it pulls you back into Fast and Furious. So it's pulling off a good balancing act, kind of pleasing fans who like the car stuff, and then also pleasing fans who liked the ridiculous stuff. However, I do feel as if some characters should have got a bit more screen time, and the pacing on this film um, should have been a bit quicker. There are a few scenes where I thought, hang on, we've been talking for this like for nearly 20 minutes now. Where's the next action sequence? I don't think you could take dialogue out because it's saying up for a resolution, but you kind of think to yourself during it, you're kind of going, there's only so many times I can hear that line or watch this action scene before I eventually just think, hang on, you're stretching this out. So I think scenes like those could have been cut better and the pace would have gone much faster. But overall, this film is one of the better ones. Probably not as good as 5 or 7, but I've mentioned it in the same lane as 6. And the only the only film, yeah, Fast and Furious 6 is kind of like where this one's at. Now, I view that one very differently. I think it's not as good as 5, but it's a really good Fast and Furious movie. It'll probably also be put in the same, and Hobbs and Shaw would only be put slightly above 6 and this one. And that's just how I view these films. They're not really high class cinema, they're more just entertainment. But yeah, the film's overall, like, feel, vibe, villain. Actually, let's talk about that. The villain is the best part of this film. As much as he could come off as cringy, which he did from time to time, that all seems very intentional on Jason Momoa's acting part. Reason being is that this villain feels like he fits right in with Fast and Furious, in the sense of he's goofy, but you have to take him seriously as well. So he'll be doing something that will be very kind of serious, but he does it in such a laughing manner. He's kind of like the Joker from The Dark Knight in this one. Is the best way of describing the performance. Just if he was a bit more goofy. And the villain is kind of the series in terms of, there's serious moments, but just a goofy overtone over it. And it gets to the point now where we actually have a villain that could challenge Dominic and his family. And you wouldn't question if he wins. Because the guy has some serious power. Again, not going to say how or why he has it. Go watch the film yourself and find that out for yourself. But I do think that the film's overall tone allows him to be goofy and serious. Like, the guy's a psychopath, but he's one of the most enjoyable psychopaths you'll watch. After that, traditional Fast and Furious stuff. Again, the cars look cool. The action scenes are actually quite cool. It's not as shaky as 5 and 9 were in terms of the camera work, which is something I liked. The budget does show, and you kind of wonder, were they really obsessed with making a 360 million euro film, and yet they didn't think about, say, a few scenes that could be trimmed down? I'm willing to bet half the budget went to the cars. Because as much as they are cool, they're not. There's a few scenes in here that will remind you of other Fast and Furious movies, which is maybe the film's biggest downfall, but at the same time, the last one they went to space, so I couldn't really see them not going back down that road of maybe doing something that we have seen before, just in a different light. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's this that's this series since Fast 5. Um and that's really all I can say about Fast and Furious 10 or Fast X. It's a good movie. It has a good story. You probably will remember a few things, maybe not specifics, but you will probably remember a few story beats. It'd be a recommendation for Fast and Furious fans, as well as a recommendation for people who maybe lost faith after 9 to go back, rewatch this film, and maybe just get back into it. And if you don't, then fine. Maybe you're tuning out Fast and Furious altogether. But I'd say it's probably like an, an 8 out of 10 for a fast movie. If we were judging this by a movie itself, it'd probably be like a 7. It's passable. But as a Fast and Furious movie, it's like an 8 out of 10. Meanwhile, 5 and 7 are like 9s out of 10s. And I don't think they're going to be able to reach that height again. But I think that is the best way of summarizing this film. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Fast and Furious 10 or Fast X. And it is one of those films that you might want to see on the bigger screen. It probably will work, it'll be worth the experience. And especially if you're seeing it with a group of people, like bring friends to this, bring family. And that's all. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Fast and Furious 10. So I'd recommend it to anyone looking to get back into Fast and Furious films, and I'd recommend it to just Fast and Furious fans. If you moviegoers looking for spectacle, go and see this. If you like it, you like it. But yeah, that's my review of Fast and Furious 10.